If you watch our podcast, we've given you a preview that this is coming. We're going to show you this limited edition Furch, but we're also going to talk about cutting edge technology that may very well change how acoustic guitars are built going forward. Stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas, and you can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notification, and like our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, visit our spring store link below for custom swag and check out our podcast, the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. So we've talked about this in the podcast we did when we came back from our European trip to Furch, which was phenomenal. We've talked about that several times. The best trip. Wonderful trip. Some people say that that's the guitar trip everyone should make. So, so this was a limited edition that we told you we purchased, but there's more under the hood. There's more than meets the eye, as I used to hear on Transformers when I was a young kid. So let's talk about what it is, and then we'll kind of get into what's under the hood.
This is a Dreadnought with cutaway. Alpine top.
Mm-hmm.
Very pretty wild grain back and sides, which they refer to as exotic rosewood.
Yeah, that works.
I guess wild grain. Is wild grain a trademarked thing?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe. Martin, maybe let us know.
This is a very interesting, fun-looking, and pretty East Indian rosewood set on the back. And, you know, we'll talk more about the aesthetics in just a second. I love that super thin, just like kind of cream
it just frames the bevel, it frames everything.
So is that a bevel solo?
It's a bevel. No, it's a bevel.
They got the bevel duo. All right, so we recently showed you the Blue Performance, a more, kind of entry level Dread with a cutaway, with the bevel duo from Furch. Great guitar. That one was spruce walnut, correct?
Engelmann spruce and walnut, and there's also an Engelmann spruce and African mahogany version.
So you got the comfortable bevel with the Dreadnought, with the cutaway, performance ready. That guitar also had the new sound port, the holes. This guitar also has the new Furch sound port, which is 6 very small, especially on this guitar, kind of invisible lines.
Yes.
Just kind of amps up the sound, amps up the amount of air that's getting pushed out of the guitar.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It allows the guitar to breathe more. We talked about in that video, if you go look at it, that Peter and the R&D team at Furch really did a lot of testing. And one notion was a really, really large sound hole. I think they just kept making the sound hole bigger till they got it to respond the way they wanted to. And they're like, well, that looks terrible. We're not doing that. And this was the solution from a mathematical standpoint. Yep. And it's funny, if you think about it, totally different builder, but back in the day, Ovation used to have those epaulets instead of the sound hole.
Yeah.
And
the holes.
They equated mathematically the same size as the sound hole. So there's just something to allowing the guitar to breathe, how much it's able to move. So that both hits you a little different because you've got sound coming up directly at you. It's not as large as some of the ports that some other builders have made, so it's a lot more subtle, but it allows the guitar to really get the air out. And so for their large body guitars like a Dreadnought, there's more power, there's more oomph to them. Yeah. And we can attest that you can tell the difference.
Yeah, you can tell. You strum this thing, it's loud in a nice way.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, it is a Furch guitar in the way that it is finished out in the neck and feels good. But what's going on in the neck?
So if you're familiar with Furch, or if you're not, I'm going to school you a little bit on how their neck joint has been up to this point. So Furch have utilized a bolt-on neck, like many builders have. That used to be sacrilege. Taylor started doing that back in the 70s. And everyone's like, oh, it's got to be glued in. It's got to be dovetail. Big question is, why? Who made that rule? And a lot of builders began using bolt-on necks. Breedlove used bolt-on necks. Collings uses a bolt-on neck. So on and so forth. You can name a lot of large builders and a lot of small builders that all utilize bolt-on necks for their guitars. This is even including Martin at this point. So it was probably a pretty ferocious fan base in the early aughts from Martin guys that were like, it has to be a glued in dovetail neck joint. Well, the new SC bodies have a sliding bolt-on adjustable with a shim dovetail neck joint instead of a glued-in one. And what Furch has used up to this point is what they've called the CNR system, and it's really a fantastic system. So inside, let me hold this real quick because I want to do a bit of a demonstration. Inside the heel here is an aluminum piece that is curved coming up this way on the neck. It handles this whole joint. And the truss rod going through a sleeve passes through that into an area underneath the fretboard, which is also milled out under the top here, so that there's kind of a continuous structure to a point. Now, when we were at the factory, they showed us a video of one of their trained technicians doing a neck reset on this. So why are bolt-on necks important? It's because of neck resets. If you have a guitar that has a glued-in joint, over time, tension, time just causes the neck to pull this way. And what that does is it gives you really high action. So if you own a vintage guitar, or maybe not so vintage of guitar, you've ever had a neck reset done, what typically has to happen if it's glued on is that you have to take out a fret, you have to drill a tiny hole, you have to introduce steam, you have to soften the glue, you have to pull the neck off, you have to bring about sandpaper and chisels and all of these things to try to remove material, get the heel back so that the neck will be at a different angle. With a bolt-on neck, traditionally it's a lot easier. You can loosen the bolts, leave the fretboard glued to the top, pass sandpaper through, and remove material very gently or a little bit at a time in order to bring it back. So I think he did a neck adjustment on a Furch in 20 minutes. This is where things get interesting. So Peter Furch took one of these and he put it on a bench and he reached in with a very expensive looking screwdriver so that it could work at different angles. And he adjusted the neck on the fly. It took about 5 seconds. And that's what this guitar is equipped with. So this is a new neck joint that they're calling the CNR Active. And it's really cool for a number of reasons. Here, I'll hand it back to you. One, it's adjustable, and it's adjustable by you, the end user, the owner of the instrument. But it also, and this is super unique, responds to humidity changes by design. And the way that it does this is kind of simple and genius at the same time. In fact, this is one of the points I made to Peter, is the simplicity of it. And he said that was a big goal, because the simpler things are, the less likely you are to have trouble with them. So there's a bolt coming from the bottom of that CNR, the part closest to the end of the heel, that passes through a dowel of spruce that is aligned with the grain a certain way. And I picked up on this. I'm like, why is it aligned this way? Was it for strength? And he said, no, that's the direction that the wood moves the most with humidity. And so as that piece responds with humidity, the idea is for it to mirror what's happening with the top of your guitar. Now, that doesn't mean you get to forget about humidity. Humidity is really important. You still have to monitor the humidity changes with your guitar. But as seasons change and it gets more humid or it gets drier outside and the top moves, that neck's going to actually adjust with it.
Which is wild.
It's wild. We saw the presentation. I hung around and I said, Peter, I'm kind of like, I have questions, And so he was gracious to spend about 20 or 30 minutes with me, like geeking out on how this neck joint works. And it works.
It's very, very cool. And as of right now, this neck joint is only available on this guitar.
Right.
It only comes on this guitar. I've had a couple people that I've talked to about doing rainbows, asking if they can get this neck on there. Currently, it's not there.
Yeah.
But I do believe they will be rolling it out in other models.
That was the intention. If you follow Furch social media at all, they recently did a video that shows this and shows some cross sections of how it looks. We have some photos of the prototype. It's not the finished product, but we can show that and give you an idea of what that looks like. But effectively, outside of it responding to temperature and humidity changes, one of the things I'd asked Peter was, do you want people to mess with this? And understand, I'm asking this question because some manufacturers don't even want to include truss rod wrenches with guitars anymore, because people have broken truss rods, caused irreparable damage to their guitar. And I wondered, could you really mess your guitar up with this? And so they did a lot of testing over, I think, a 2-year period with this. One of the things he said they did is completely loosen it. Mm-hmm. What happens? You have terrible action, but nothing breaks. Yeah. Everything is still there. And And while it's going to respond to temperature and humidity, it's not going to be absolutely perfect. And so again, that's why that manual adjustability is there. But I want you to think about, for all of you who've bought guitars and you get a guitar home and it needs a setup, right? The action's too high. There's only so many adjustment points that you typically have on an acoustic guitar. You have the height at the nut. You have the height of the saddle, which if you take it down too much, it affects the top vibration. You have the relief in the neck, which is not the same as adjusting the neck angle. And then that's usually it. If you have a tailor, you can take it to a tailor technician who can take the neck off and replace shims and change that angle for you. If you have a dovetail neck joint, your choices are relief, nut, saddle. That's it. Okay? So what this allows you to do is have a guitar, and if you like action higher because you're going to strum, you turn it. If you like action real low because you're going to play fingerstyle, you turn it the other way. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's very, very cool, and I am very excited to see how many larger guitar companies take notice of this and how many people wish that this was available on their other guitars that they have. You know,
so to that point, I think you've seen this guitar. If you go to the Martin factory, which is awesome, you should go if you ever get a chance to. They have a museum, and in the museum they have a bunch of just a history of Martin guitars. And one of the earliest Martin guitars, it's a little gut-strung, very small body, Stauffer headstock, Martin guitar from the 1800s. It has a keyhole in the neck heel where you could put a key in and you could turn it to adjust the neck angle. Now that solution kind of functions along the same lines as this idea, but wasn't suitable for steel string guitars with 147 pounds of tension on the neck. But, guitar companies, I like what Bob Taylor says, guitar manufacturers or guitar builders are great because they're all just trying to solve a problem, whatever that problem is. There's been companies that have tried different ways of doing this. So Taylor did their bolt-on necks first, then their NT necks, like right at 2001, is kind of when it worked through the line. There's, I think, River Song is a guitar company that has something like this, but I don't like the solution because it's a rod that goes all the way through the body of the guitar, comes out to the end pin. It's a lot of adjustability, but it's extremely heavy.
Yeah.
So I did ask Peter, how much does this weigh? They redid the alloy that the CNR bracket typically used to make it lighter but stronger at the same time. And so it didn't really...
It doesn't feel...
It didn't change the weight of the guitar. It didn't change the balance of the guitar. Yeah. And I think compared to what a lot of people have tried to do on this, it's just a simpler... I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to use. It's a more beautiful solution to the problem. So, and it sounds pretty good.
It sounds good. Yeah, that's... At the end of the day, it's a great sounding guitar, and with this, and with the wood pairing, it's a dread that I think anybody would fall in love with. So, take a listen.
So there you have it. Effectively, we have a very fairly traditional looking guitar with really a lot of technology in it. You've got a lot of modern features like the bevels, the ports, and now a fully adjustable neck angle that otherwise looks like it was a normal neck and heel on a guitar.
Yeah.
And it sounds good.
Furch is a company that I think is small enough to where they can continue to innovate and pivot really quickly. But they, we've had Furch in the store how many years now? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it was right before the pandemic that I first picked them up, yeah.
Yeah, they, even through some of the changes and small evolutions that we've seen, the consistency has never changed. The sound quality, the playability, it's just the small little things that they're constantly trying to make their guitars better, which every company's doing that, but the bigger companies that we deal with, those changes, that however small they may be, take place over years and years and years. These builders are just, making changes, making advancements and improvements, and they just happen, and it's really, really cool.
I think the other interesting thing about it is it calls into question a lot of assumptions or presuppositions about what matters or what causes what in acoustic guitar design. A lot of people have said, oh, it has to be a glued-in, dovetail neck joint with really good wood-to-wood contact because of what it does to the guitar. And if you kind of think about that, part of it makes sense, but the other part of it doesn't, since the vibration point on the guitar is from the bridge, and that's where everything's coming from. You want the neck to be securely fastened. You want it to, not rob vibrations from the strings. Like, there's things you do want it to do and don't want it to do. But what is necessary and not necessary to cause that to happen is maybe up in the air. And I think a great example of that is the fact that when Martin made the S body, they innovated an entirely new neck joint for them and for the industry that also was extremely easy to adjust. But those guitars sounded really good, even though it was a complete departure from the original design. So I think this also represents that it's another movement in, again, guitar builders trying to solve problems for us musicians, so that we can benefit from it. Because at the end of the day, you could talk about all the technology. What is all of these changes for? It's for the musician. It's for your guitar to be more comfortable. It's for your guitar to be louder. It's for your guitar to be easier to play for the style that you play.
Yeah.
And for you to not have to, take it someplace and, wait for someone to do, all sorts of stuff on it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Very, very cool. So these are limited edition, and I think we maybe only have 2 coming.
Yeah.
This is the first one. Hopefully, before too long, we'll see Furch roll out what models this neck's going to be available on. But between this and the new blues and the limited edition yellows and reds and the rainbow stuff, it's Furch time. It's a good time to be very into Furch, which we are, and we hope that more people out there are, hearing the name, getting interested in the guitars, because I think you go play them, you come in our store or another dealer, you're going to like the sound. I guarantee
I knew you were going there. Well, yeah, it's exciting. It's a good neck joint. It's maybe the best neck joint.
Too soon!
Some people are saying. No, so we've got a very limited supply of these. It will propagate through the line at some point, but if you would like to get in on the new technology as soon as possible, plus the really cool tone woods that are being used here with the extremely figured exotic rosewood, you want to go to our website, which is alamomusic.com. Look at all the Furch stuff, because we got the new stuff and we got the classics, and we can get you whatever you want. If we don't have it, we can get it here. We can do a rainbow. You can look at all the specs, look at all the pictures that are taken here in the house, and then ask us any questions that you got left over, because we all like talking Furch. I like that.
Yeah.
If you do have questions when you're online, there's 2 ways to reach out. Well, there's more than 2 ways. There's 3 ways you can reach out to us. You can give us a call. There's a button on every listing to ask a question. But you can also chat with us, and that's live. There's no bots. because Cooper's not a bot, I'm not a bot, the rest of the sales guys aren't a bot. If you have questions about the neck joint, and I love to geek out, you can just go, Chris, what the heck is going on with the neck joint? And I'll go, oh, it's really cool. So feel free to reach out with any questions that you have, and we will help you get the right guitar to suit your needs. If you're new to the channel and you dig this kind of nerdy guitar stuff, you want to make sure you...
You're going to want to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you know when cool stuff's coming. And then like the subscription and the notifications is for your benefit. The like, comment, and share is for our benefit because we want to get made fun of hardcore.
Everyone's got goals. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.